you who don't know who I am, I'm Gemma Monk-Hartsley, and I am from Herefordshire Green Network's Building Sense group. Thank you very much for coming today for our launch of our webinar series, our autumn-winter webinar series, and also a bit of a sort of soft launch, if you like, for Green Open Homes, which takes place in November. So we are doing an online version today. Before we start, just a little bit of housekeeping. Some of you, your cameras will be off. If your camera is turned off during this webinar, please don't be offended. It's just to help with the recording. It might make it a bit smoother. We recommend that you switch your view to speaker view to get the best viewing experience. So you can do that. We're recording this webinar and we'll send you a follow-up email after it with the recording on it and some other bits of information as well. If you have any questions, we welcome questions. This is the purpose of today, really. It's to learn and to ask Jackie questions as well. Please either pop them in the chat and I'll get Jackie to pick them up once she's finished presenting, or at the end, there'll be time for you to come off of mute and ask your questions as well. So yeah, please take an interest, store up your questions. We really do love to hear them. A little bit about Building Sense. It's an initiative that started in 2020 to bring together people, information and professional expertise with the purpose of helping with the challenge of making homes comfortable year-round in the face of high heating bills and cutting carbon emissions. Since 2022, we've been partnering with local charity March's Energy Agency on the Future Ready Homes programme. And that programme promotes and supports good practice retrofit of homes across the Marches area. And that being Shropshire, Telford and Wrekin and Herefordshire. It's doing this through a webinar series, why we're here today. And this is, as I said, the first of a few more this winter. We're also giving out retrofit advice. We're doing events like Green Open Homes. Again, we'll talk a bit more about that at the end. And the Future Ready Homes directory of local recommended retrofit professionals and installers to help you actually undertake your retrofits. Right, so that's enough from me. I'm going to be handing over to Jackie Jones now. Jackie is actually co-chair of Herefordshire Green Network, and she lives in a beautiful home west of Hereford, heading towards the mountains. She does tend to open a home for Green Open Homes, but today she's going to be, for those of you that haven't seen it, might not be able to get out to see her, she's going to give you a bit of a tour and overview and some information about her retrofit and renovation that she undertook. So Jackie, over to you.
Yeah, thanks ever so much, Gemma, and thank you everybody who's here. So what should I say? Welcome to my home. And look, excuse me if I ever seem distracted. We've got a dangerous tree being taken down outside and I see it from my desk and it's quite fascinating. So I'll try not to watch them more than I'm doing this. So what did we decide to call this? I think we started off calling it an agricultural building, but that didn't seem quite right. Let me show you. Oh, not yet. I'll show you in a minute. We set out, my partner Edward and I set out on this journey, as they say. We knew we wanted to modify this house. One of the things that I tend to say when giving talks on retrofit, Building Sense talks, is that yes, whatever level of retrofit you do needs to be right for the building and it needs to be right for you. So that's me quoting myself. Here we are, this lovely house in 2014. 190 meters above sea level. It's an exposed position, so it's open to the northeast, which is over here. The southwest is over here, and that's the prevailing wind. So most of our weather actually comes from, where's my little cursor gone. Most of the weather comes from over here. It also means that that's essentially facing south. And so the house isn't ideally situated really for making benefit of solar gain, losing my little cursor. What we had, by the way, is an original, which goes sort of up here, barn, what had been an added-on cottage and an added-on agricultural building of some kind. We didn't know much about it, but we did know the house because it was owned and lived in by a relative who we'd visited often. So we did have some familiarity with it. We knew some things. We knew it didn't have a damp course. We knew it had concrete solid floors. It had oil central heating, which I didn't like at all. And it was a really cold house. So the first summer that we moved in, before we did any work to it, I was having to wear leggings under my trousers in summer. This was ridiculous. We'd moved from a fairly energy efficient house, and this, yeah. The house had had all sorts of 1970s and 80s improvements, PVC windows, PVC conservatory, etc., etc., and a bedroom wall at the end, I'll show you again in a minute, that had been dry lined because it had been running with water. So here you see plenty of PVC, which I felt sorry for the house about, though it was the windows were actually ready for replacement. They'd done 10 years and they were loose. A conservatory one end and a conservatory the other end, both not doing anything very good for the thermal performance. And here is in one of those conservatories, the kitchen looking out. There was no way in winter of having any sort of thermal barrier between that totally uninsulated conservatory and the main living space. It had 3 big radiators in it, and you could probably see supplementary electric heating. This house was not working energy-wise at all, but it was a comfortable and much-loved home for the aunt who was living there, and yeah, had a wood burner that was hidden in summer behind here, a wood burner to supplement the central heating. Anyhow, when it was announced that she was going to sell up and move to town, we thought, oh, that could be interesting. And got the chance, because it was a family member, to actually move in and do a test live for a couple of weeks when she was away on holiday, and get to know the place a bit more. And we were intrigued by things like this. So this was one of the back door, one of the many doors. What had gone on here, we thought? This is all being patched up, a wide door that had been narrowed. There were things like that that intrigued us, and we started to wonder about the history of the house. Anyway, we bought the house, or we knew we were buying the house, and we were able, while our aunt was living there, which was lovely because that's not normally the sort of thing you get the chance to do. So she was very welcoming to the architect that we decided to work with and so on. She herself was always very keen on building projects, so we had full support for that. You can read this, I won't read it out, but essentially we wanted the house to be comfortable and light, connected with the outside really, and we wanted to simplify it. I wanted to get rid of what had been done when it was converted from a barn, we think, by the Victorians, and certainly do things to respect that original building. It was was tricky, you know. It wasn't a house of great cultural value, but it was a fine old bit of stone building, and we wanted to respect that. So we knew that we needed to get to know the building, we needed to know our objectives, um, find the right architect for us, and I think we did, Karen Houle from Abergavenny. We were enormously fortunate in finding the right builder who happened to be free at the right time, because he only works on one thing at a time, Royston Davies, from Erdsley, and the right renewables installer, Nick Walker of Profit, and all of them did great work for us. We knew we had to be ready to make oodles of decisions from, you know, things like doorknob handles, door handles, skirting boards, no skirting boards, electric switch, you know, all of those things. And we needed to find somewhere else to live for several months. So, yeah. When we were getting ready, we looked everywhere for someone to do an energy survey, and we drew a complete blank. We just couldn't find anyone. But we did turn to Timauer, who you may know, Ecological Building Materials. They're based in Brecon. And we knew that we were both very much in favour of their approach to dealing with old traditional buildings and insulation. So we got their surveyor to come and do a report for us. I won't read it all out, but essentially they explained to us how this building is working and why it was being so cold, including in summer. And it was partly that the walls were wet. The walls were wet, and because they were wet, they were conducting heat. We were losing heat massively through these wet walls. And so what we had are rubble stone walls, and I'm sorry, I don't think the type's terribly visible, but here we are on the left. What we had was rising damp. It was coming up, it was hitting the concrete floor, it was turning left or right, and then saying, oh, this is nice, look, I can go up here. Here's a rubble stone wall, which has stone on the outside, stone on the inside, and various sort of, you know, it was built as a barn, just some sort of filling. What had happened outside was that there had been some pointing using non-breathable, non-vapor permeable materials, cement essentially. And on the inside, there was gypsum plaster, which won't allow moisture back and forth happily. Wrong sort of paint, and latterly vinyl wallpaper. This was not making the walls happy, it was not making the house happy. What's more, oopsie, sorry. What's more, outside there was paving, and that was trapping moisture that was also then heading in the walls and up the walls. So what they were recommending, and this is regardless of any insulation, is that we should get rid of that paving, that we should have a land drain to allow the external moisture to drain away, that the pointing should be with lime mortar, and that inside we should again have lime plaster that would allow the moisture to just go backwards and forwards and not be an issue. They also recommended that we change the flooring to a breathing floor. And it's a bit more about that in a minute. Part of the progress for outside, the process for outside was lime washing. The photos that you saw didn't seem to show a lime washed house, but there were traces of it having been both white at some stage and a rather gorgeous, oh, what's that colour? Yellow. Anyway, you know what I mean. Yeah, so land drains outside, that started to become something that we needed the builders to do. It started to look like really messing up the garden. And although we didn't really know that this moisture was there, when we moved the furniture out for the builders to start work, we started to find these signs of mold, black mold, and some of it was worse than that. So it all made sense. This is taken from the report they did. So essentially, we needed to get the walls functioning correctly. And they were also saying that any insulation we wanted to do, and they were recommending cork. I will wave a bit here, but I'll show you more later. Saying that it really needed to be specified carefully, and it was really important not to just, and this is true for any insulation, don't just shove it on damp walls, whether inside or out. The system, and this is all on their website, and I'm not one of their marketing people, but this is their system that we would strip everything off the existing walls, unless the existing external walls. There would then be an initial layer of lime plaster to get it essentially get any air gaps here in the texture of the wall filled in. So a rough lime plaster, a smoother lime plaster, a layer of adhesive, and then the cork, followed by another layer of grippy textile, and then lime plaster. What a lot going on. And that stuff, as it goes on, has a massive amount of water in it. That all needs to dry. It can't be rushed. It's not a quick process. Now, the floor. That was a perfectly nice house. Yes, we got a digger in. It was really, I don't know whether it's exciting or terrifying to have a digger in your house, digging up the floor, but that's what we had. And so the structure here was that we would have the subsoil and then a layer of this hardcore. I'm trying to get my little pointer to point. I've lost it. There we are. Layer of hardcore, which essentially looks a bit like coke. If anyone's ever burnt coke on an old stove in the days of that sort of stuff, it's actually aerated glass, so foamed glass. And the nice stuff about it is that it insulates because it's trapped with air, and it will allow moisture vapor to come up through it, but it won't allow actual moisture to wick up and become a pool of moisture or a problem. So we have that. There's then space for a screed, and what you can do at that stage is what we did at the ground floor, is put down the underfloor heating, and then a thin screed on top. So there we are. So here was this one particular room before we started, and off we went, making a hell of a mess of what was a fine house. But what you can see here is that the original barn had stone walls going around here. These internal Victorian brick walls had been put in as partitions when it was altered. Here we had a huge opening that we couldn't quite understand, but had been partly bricked up with breeze block. And we decided to let more light in there as we discovered what it was all about. That was me standing in one of the rooms when the flooring was in process. And then we were having an extension built outside, so there's more of the flooring going in there. And here's the a room in progress with the cork on the walls and fiberboard insulation for this section. What do you call those sloping bits? Oh, you know, the sloping bits that go up towards the roof. And then in another area showing the lime plaster going on top of the cork. In another part of the house, which is where I am now, it was a completely separate structure. It was actually just an old workshop thing that was made. Oh, there go the tree men. Workshop. Every wall had a different makeup, so we needed a different approach, and that was timbers infilled with wool fibre, and then also making use of this wood wool board, which is what we use for any internal stuff, because it's an alternative to regular plasterboard, which is gypsum plaster. And our builder was not having gypsum plaster on his site, so good for him. Oh, I've gone back. Oh, hang on, sorry. There we are. Air tightness and mechanical ventilation. We decided not. We've got very good levels of air tightness, less so in this separate building that I'm in, which actually has 3.5 external walls and a separate roof. We decided against it, but we have had an air tightness test and it still performs better than is required from a regular new build, but it's nothing like as good as Passive House would be. And would we make the same decision now? I don't know. This is just to give you an idea. Within the house, I said we got an original threshing barn, another building. This is just to show this is the outside wall of the original threshing barn as it joins onto the other agricultural building. We never knew what it was. And just to show that wherever possible, if something had been an external wall, we didn't plaster it, we just left it natural. So there was you can see the story of the building a little bit more. I seem to be being dazzled by sunlight here, but never mind. Waste and carbon impact. Yeah, waste. There was a lot of it. We had a very conscientious builder who, at his workshop, a huge workshop, which was very low carbon, actually stores anything that he thinks can possibly be reused or puts it back into the system. But there's no denying that doing this sort of work has a really big impact. And although I knew that in theory before we started, when you start seeing stuff coming out of the house, it is, you know, it's not nothing. Windows, they were made by our builder and his joinery for the first time, and because I was saying, let's try this, he used Accoya timber. I don't know if you know that. It's essentially a softwood that has been pickled. It's acetylized, and that gives it a lot of the properties of a hardwood. So it meant we were able to avoid hardwoods there, and it also gives a lot less movement. So we've got that, and they were spray painted by them in the workshop. And we have a mixture of double and triple glazing. And that was partly, we were urged by the architect to not have triple glazing for the smaller windows just because of the aesthetics. And I'd lived with small triple glazed windows before. They do perform a lot better. So we've got lovely aesthetics, but the performance isn't quite as good. Electricity. We installed 4 kilowatts of solar PV on the garage roof, which is facing south, and that generates a good chunk of our electricity. We decided not to have a battery. We might do that we've always had an EV that we can charge up. So we've got pretty good local consumption, and we're on the feed-in tariff. So we've not been, any spare electricity gets used by the neighbours. That's fine. We top up with grid from a renewable tariff. Heating on hot water. We chose pellets. I chose pellets. Would we do that these days? I'm not sure. I think heat pumps are much improved compared with when we were planning this 12 years ago. The carbon profile of grid electricity has improved really significantly. So we might do that. But meanwhile, we have a pellets boiler. It's very, very simple. It lives up at the shed. It works itself automatically. We get one delivery a year. We're able to source them fairly locally from Gloucestershire. The pellets are all made from wood waste that has been sourced within 60 miles of the people who make and supply. So we're able to dodge the issue of ancient forests being felled in Russia. It has more of a carbon impact, arguably, than electricity as electricity improves. So no, there we are. We have a 300 litre, no, we don't. We have a 600 litre, I apologise, we have a 600 litre thermal store. It's so any heat, whether it comes from our solar thermal, which you'll see in a minute, or from the pellets boiler, goes into that. As I mentioned, we've got underfloor heating downstairs and quite small radiators upstairs. There's the solar thermal. Would we do that these days? I don't know. Possibly, because it is super efficient, but we could probably get PV to deliver the heat, spare heat if we wanted as well. So I was saying that we've got this low temperature, or at least I wrote, but didn't say, low temperature heating. So our underfloor, but basically the heat comes out of the thermal store at 2 temperatures. Typically it's about 28 degrees or into the 30s for the underfloor heating, very low temperature. And then the radiators upstairs, it'll be in the 30s. Occasionally, if it's really, really cold, they'll heat up to, with water, 40 degrees. But honestly, who would want hot radiators? The joy of low temperature heating is great. So whatever kind of heating you've got, I'd say try and get it to work low temperature. If you've not got a heat pump yet, that would give you the confidence that low temperature can work. However, I wasn't that confident at first about what we were going to do. Was this really going to work? I was really keen that we were going to be able to use some sort of wood for cooking as well as electricity for cooking, which is what we mostly do. We also knew we were living somewhere where there were quite often power cuts that would go on for 3 or 4 days, and where, central heating boilers stops, etc., etc. A battery would get us around that for some of the time. However, we decided to get this lovely wood-fired cooker, and you can make a fire in here. It's lovely and warm. You can do any cooking you like on top, and it's got an oven that heats up really quickly and a little warmer. So it is really lovely for winter days and absolutely brilliant for power cuts. Also, for use in our little sort of sitting room snug is a wood-fired wood burner that we just put on sometimes. And I have to admit, we don't really need that heat. And if I show you, I think it's the next picture. Yeah, this is the chimney for that wood burner. And it was really hard. We didn't know whether to have it blocked up and insulated. Maybe that was the right thing to do. It's what the previous owners had done. Whether to have the wood burner. Because of health and safety, building regs, etc., we weren't able to apply the insulation that we wanted within this cavity, which means that if we don't use the wood burner in winter, this becomes it becomes quite cold in there and a source of heat loss. So, you know, you muddle through. We could do things differently. It might be that external insulation would have served us better, but we wanted to keep the look of the building. So there we are. That's what it looks like now. Outside. And just to say on materials, wherever possible, we used local ones, so timber from Whitney sawmills. We used for our stone floors that you'll see in a minute, a local stone quarry. It's the same stone that everyone else has. Inside we used earthborne clay paint, which allows vapor to go backwards and forwards, and mostly woolen curtains because there's sheep in the field outside. That's a view of the main living room. That's the sort of extension bit that you saw being built, showing some of the floorboards and the triple glazed windows. The stone floor, which probably might have functioned better throughout the whole of the ground floor, but we didn't really quite want that. So we've got it in the porch where it looks like I could do with scrubbing it, and in the hallway. Woolen curtains. And for anyone who's thinking of doing internal wall insulation, do think in advance. Fortunately, we did think in advance of how you're going to deal with attaching things like this, because you can end up compromising your insulation. So it's well worth planning it beforehand, where you're going to hang things up. And it's not just curtains, it's things like heavy pictures or, you know, significant fittings. So remember that lovely little door that's now restored full width and part of our main living room, with a lovely timber door. There we are. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah,
Gemma.
that was really interesting. Really interesting to see a very sympathetic sort of restoration. Not that huge amounts of restoration was needed, but yeah, and renovation. Obviously, you went very deep with your retrofit. Clearly, everything out. Those pictures of yeah, partway through and having the floor out and everything, and back to bare bones. Really quite scary, and not for everyone, but also it really.
So I've got a light, I've got a lighting issue. Let's see if that helps
Oh, there you go.
a bit.
Okay, yeah.
There we are.
But really interesting as well, I think what you were talking about with getting to know your building and understanding how it works. And some of that you don't even know until you start taking the plasterboard off the walls and seeing those additions that have happened over the years and what it's been made out of. And that all comes into play with the performance, how your home is performing and the problems that are being created and that sort of thing. So yes, very, very interesting. Right, it's over to all of you now for questions.
And I'll do my best. I'll do my best. And I should just say, I think we both know we were really fortunate to be able to do a project of this kind, and to, yeah, and that we were also able to do it in one big go, because all too often that's just not you know, it's not practical. You know, we'd only just moved here. Almost everything had gone into storage anyway, so it was all a kind of semi camping existence for a bit. So anyway, over to you all.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to come off of mute and ask a question, please just jump in. Or if you want to pop anything in the chat, I can read out for you. But yeah, this is your webinar. So if you've got any questions, please ask away. No, there's no one very keen. Oh, we've had a message from Stephanie saying, just wanted to say that it's a really interesting and relatable presentation. Tell us more, Stephanie. Relatable how? Are you going through something similar or considering
I think
anything?
I've sent everyone to sleep. Oh, come on, someone. If not questions, then I don't. Yeah, and I should say we're in the Golden Valley, which we hadn't mentioned, I think.
Yeah, okay.
I've got a query.
Please.
Can I go on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would I be right in thinking that unless you can buy property at a very favourable rate, the cost of the renovations and making it into such a lovely home, which it obviously is, and it looks, you know, it is lovely seeing the natural fibres so used, but the cost is a very serious consideration.
It was,
That's
it
the
was.
question.
And
Yeah.
although I should say, although we were buying from somebody we knew, we bought at market rate, as agreed with the family. So yeah, it was valued by 3 estate agents and we all settled on a price. So yeah, doing something of this scale takes a lot of money, half as much again, I think, as what we paid for the house. So, and I think it's important to stress that what we were doing partly was a bit of a grand designs as well as the energy retrofit. So that for me, they were completely integrated. I'd already done a total house retrofit on a different property for a family member, and that was a small terraced house, and that whole project the year before this, so what was I doing? That whole project had come in at £40,000. That was, yeah, a full retrofit, somewhere more modest.
Yeah, and I think it's possibly worth saying as well. I mean, some parts of retrofit are more affordable than others, but there is a value to it as well. As Jackie said, hers is a bit different because she did a total renovation and a bit of a grand design and incorporated the energy efficiency into that. But we are finding more and more that demand for energy efficient homes and homes with green tech and that sort of thing, they do appeal. So there is a value associated to that, a bit of an uplift in the value of your property. That's not to say it will necessarily cover all of it. But I certainly know with the likes of solar panels, they're pretty much saying whatever you spend on solar panels, that will increase your property by that much money. So you will get that back, if not some more. So that is something to take into account. Jackie, someone did actually ask, how long did it take and how much did it cost? We have had the question.
Yeah, it took the whole shebang. Let me think. We moved. There was a long planning period before the house was even ours. So I think we started planning it in autumn of 2014. We bought the house then in spring of 2015. We were ready at that point to submit all of the planning applications and so on, and they came through quite quickly, and then do all the, you know, the BAT surveys and things like that. The BATs were did mean some alterations to plans, which we were very happy to do because, you know, the bats had been there longer than us. And then we moved in May 2015, moved out again in November 2015. So we'd probably been about a year of planning before the builders turned up. They then started work and we were able to move into the room I'm in now as a sort of pod on a building site to sleep round about August 2016. And then the rest of the building work carried on kind of around us to about February, March 2017. And by that stage, we'd very much got to the, oh my goodness, will it ever finish? Will they ever go stage? But actually it was a pretty speedy project, to be honest. Yeah.
Great.
Oh, and how much did it cost? What can I say? About half as much as we paid for the house again. I haven't got the full amount. I'm not sure that I really want to know exactly. It's a bit like those people on TV who say, it's turning out to be a bit more than we thought. Yeah.
And Susan asks, what was on the outside of the house? Was it just a lime wash?
Was originally or now?
Now, yeah.
Now, yes, now it is lime washed. So we don't have any external insulation.
Yeah.
And so the lime washes essentially adds a layer of, I wouldn't say waterproofing, it's actually sort of waterproofing and a sacrificial layer that gets worn off, and it gets worn off rather than the stone getting worn away because the stone was in quite bad shape.
And Lee is asking, have you monitored the humidity since you completed?
Yeah, we did actually initially. We had a few little gadgets and we haven't used them for a bit, but we definitely tracked over the first 2 years the humidity levels dropping off as the house, which was very humid at first, did settle and go through. So no, haven't looked for a bit, but I used to be very familiar with these humidity levels, and I've now forgotten them. But they're probably, I imagine they are higher in periods after we've had a lot of rain, because we've got a lot, we're on a slope, there'd be a lot of ground moisture coming through and going out. But touch wood, no issues.
Excellent. And we've got one saying, how are you finding the floor insulation? Is it performing well? Are there any areas of damp that have returned since installation?
We just don't ever think about the floor insulation. It's just there and lovely, really. So in winter, of course, the floor tends to be just a little bit warm because of the underfloor heating. But as a result of that, it means that the underfloor heating is, the heat is pushed upwards rather than downwards. So we're not heating anything underneath the insulation, the heating pipes. What was the second question, Gemma?
Has any damp returned since?
Into the walls? No.
Yeah.
What we sometimes had, and it's really frustrating, we've got these really deep window reveals, and although some insulation has been taken into the window reveals, on some of the smaller windows, we didn't use board. It's actually an insulating plaster, and because that isn't the same level of insulation, we can get some condensation, And I really hate to say that sometimes in deep winter, I do need to wipe off some specks of mold from inside the window reveals right up, the inch or so furthest out from the room. And so we've wondered about going round again on those troublesome windows and having, another go at those window reveals. And it's extra frustrating because it was an issue that we considered. And there probably there probably was something better we could have done at the time. We decided to try this and see how it was. So there we are.
Yeah, and I think I've heard that from others before. When you start doing this work and when you make such big improvements to other areas and other walls, it then something that was fine could then become a bit more of a problem, because you're creating those thermal bridges and yeah. So I guess
Yeah.
that'd be one to
But
monitor and think about.
yes, but essentially, touch wood, I'm ripping my desk here. Touch wood, no issues that we've been aware of. Yeah.
Excellent. Stephanie asks, did the architect advise on the building materials and structure, or did you make the decisions based on your own research?
I think we'd made some decisions about strong preferences, and she was very much on board with those, and then worked with Timar and their specifiers to actually specify exactly what we needed in the different, by way of materials for the different parts of the house, or the different elements of the building. So yeah, expressed a preference, found an architect who was happy to do that, who then worked with a detailed specifier.
And when you say sort of you expressed a preference, was that because Timauer had given you that kind of steer?
No,
Or-
that was the preference of our going to Timara in the first place, because
Oh,
I've done quite a lot of, what should I say? I was already quite familiar with quite a lot of retrofit issues, having run something similar to Building Sense where we lived before. And so I'd heard a great deal from architects and natural materials enthusiasts about the perils and pitfalls of retrofit. Yeah.
great. Well, John, hopefully that answers your question as well then. John's an architect that we've had with us today, and he was also wanting to know about how you came to your decisions on materials. It does.
Ah, right.
Saying
Yeah.
it does, thank you. Right, are there any more questions coming in, or does anyone just want to come off of mute and ask any questions? No, it doesn't look like it. Right, I'm going to share my screen very quickly. She says if she can find what she wants to.
Oh, what would you do differently?
Ah,
Yeah, that's the question I normally ask people. What would you do differently? I don't think there's anything that I haven't already mentioned, to be honest. So I think we'd look harder these days at the heating source. We might be more willing to. I always hankered after Passive House, but decisions are joint decisions. So Passive House might have been more comfortable. We'd certainly be using fewer pellets if we'd gone that route. Not that we use a lot. The window reveals.
hmm.
That's probably it. Oh, maybe those double glazed windows. Yeah. So just the things I've mentioned.
Not that you're a perfectionist at all, Jackie. Right, I'm just going to quickly share my screen. If any more questions come in, please do. we'll answer them in just a mo. But in the meantime, Green Open Home. So this was the warm up. This was Jackie introducing the idea. Green Open Homes is usually a in-person actual going and having a nosy around people's homes. We've run it for the last 4 years. This is our 4th year, and it has run in the past prior to that as well. It's your chance to go and do exactly this. Have a look around homes, see what people have done, ask questions, get some inspiration for your own home, learn about some of the mistakes made that you don't want to make, all of that sort of thing, get recommendations for installers. And it is coming up throughout November. So every weekend in November, there are homes that are going to be open across Herefordshire, Shropshire, Telford and Wrekin, possibly some in Powys as well. If you go onto greenopenhomes.net, you can use the postcode search to find your nearest ones, or you can go and find the Herefordshire homes page with them all on there. I am still adding to it. There are more people joining all the time. So if you look at it today, hopefully next week there'll be some more on there. But please do go and start having a look if you are interested in that. And if you have your own home that you have upgraded, and that doesn't necessarily mean to the degree that Jackie has, but if you have retrofit, if you've got green technology in there, if you've done that sort of work and you would like to open it up and offer the opportunity for people to come and have a look and ask some questions, then please let me know. There's a form to fill in. We can get you on the website as well. The more the merrier. Maybe some of our architects out there might have some homes or some clients that might be interested in opening up. And the other thing is, you can help us by spreading the word about Green Open Homes. There will be emails coming out about it. If you've got social media and you can share information about it, if you've got friends that might be interested, please do share with them. If you are part of mailing lists on newsletters that you think we might be able to put Green Open Homes in, then please let me know about that as well. We go to a lot of effort putting the event on, and we want as many people to have the chance to go and yes, Jackie.
Oh, sorry, Gemma, I didn't think you were going to respond that quickly. I just wanted to flag up that it would be really interesting for if any of the architects are here. I'd really love to hear from them about what they might have done differently. So not questions from them to me, but the other way around, really.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay.
carry on with the Green Open Homesing. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's all right. We'll pick that one back up. So surveys. Jackie mentioned there that she struggled to be at the early stages to find someone who could actually come and do that independent survey, assess the property, advise on what they needed doing. And Tamara played that role to some extent. We have through Future Ready Homes, there are surveys available in Herefordshire. It's actually not just a survey, it's a retrofit support package. So if you are interested in doing a retrofit, in improving your home, not necessarily a huge retrofit, perhaps you're thinking about switching to a heat pump, you might want to get off oil and gas, but you're not sure that your home's ready for that. You think you might need to make some upgrades before you're going to be in a position to make that a sensible choice in terms of cost. Let us know and have one of the surveys. They're on a pay what you choose basis, so you can choose to pay nothing for it if you wish. We are suggesting you might want to pay £100 for them, plus VAT, and that money goes to March's Energy Agency, who are the project lead on this, who are an energy charity. So yeah, that's a contribution to them. I'll share details about those surveys. We are targeting people that live in cavity walled homes primarily, and who are on oil or gas currently. But having said that, we are open to, if you're passionate about doing this and you need some help, put an application in and we'll see what we can do. If you've just got a specific question that comes up, we have a free technical panel that's available to offer advice. So you might say, I live in such and such a house, I've got a really damp wall, I don't know what to do, what's the best approach to take? Come and ask us. and we'll put it to our technical panel and you can get some free advice, and that's from architects, we've got structural engineers, we've got retrofit experts, we've got a bit of all sorts in there. So yes, let us answer your questions. And then there will be some more webinars coming up this autumn, winter as well. Keep an eye on your emails for information about those. And it is still not fixed what all of those are. So if there is anything that you are itching to find out about, then let me know and maybe we can do something on that. Or if you want to maybe talk about your own green home, and we can do something similar to this. Maybe one of our architects might want to put on a webinar that's talking about some of their projects. Yeah, we are open to ideas and suggestions.